1066. A year that would reshape England forever. A throne in dispute, three powerful contenders, and a battle that would determine the future of a kingdom. Welcome to the story of the Norman Conquest, one of the most important events in European history. To understand why England was thrown into chaos in 1066, we have to go back to the reign of King Edward the Confessor. Edward had ruled England since 1042, and though he was a devout and respected king, he had one major problem. He left no clear heir. This meant that when he died on January 5, 1066, multiple claimants stepped forward, each believing they had the right to rule England. Harold Godwinson was the most powerful noble in England, the Earl of Wessex, and had been Edward the Confessor's right-hand man. He claimed that on his deathbed, Edward named him as his successor. The Anglo-Saxon nobles supported Harold, and he was crowned King of England on January 6, 1066, just one day after Edward's death. But Harold's reign was immediately challenged by two powerful rivals. Across the English Channel, William, Duke of Normandy, had his own claim. He argued that years earlier, King Edward had promised him the throne. Even more controversially, he claimed that Harold Godwinson had sworn an oath of loyalty to support William's claim, an oath allegedly made while Harold was in Normandy in 1064. To William, Harold was nothing but a traitor and an oath-breaker. As soon as Harold was crowned, William began preparing for an invasion. The third contender was Harald Hardrada, the fearsome King of Norway. Harold claimed that England had once been part of a Viking empire, and as the successor to those rulers, he had a right to the throne. Hardrada was a battle-hardened warrior, having fought across Europe. He saw England as his next conquest, and in September 1066, he launched a full-scale Viking invasion. Hardrada's army, joined by Harold Godwinson's own brother Tostig, landed in northern England with around 10,000 warriors. They quickly defeated an English force at Fulford and took control of the city of York. Harold Godwinson, now facing his first major challenge as king, gathered an army and force-marched them over 180 miles in just 4 days, a truly astonishing feat of military endurance. On September 25, 1066, the two armies clashed at Stamford Bridge. The Vikings, having expected to negotiate a surrender, were completely unprepared for battle. Many had even left their armor behind. According to legend, a single Viking berserker held the narrow bridge against the English for hours, cutting down dozens before he was finally defeated. But the main Viking army stood little chance. After fierce fighting, Harald Hardrada was killed by an arrow to the throat, and the Vikings were utterly crushed. Harold Godwinson had won, but his victory would be short-lived. Just days after his victory, Harold received devastating news. William had landed in England with a massive Norman army. With no time to rest, Harold and his exhausted troops marched south once again, covering another 250 miles or 400 kilometers in just 2 weeks. On October 14, 1066, the two armies met near Hastings. Harold's Anglo-Saxons fought on foot, forming a tight shield wall on the high ground, while William's Normans had a mix of cavalry, archers and infantry. The battle was brutal and lasted for hours. At one point, the Normans began to retreat, but William, realizing his army was breaking, lifted his helmet to show he was still alive and led a counterattack. The decisive moment came when Harold was struck in the eye by an arrow, or perhaps cut down by Norman knights. Either way, with Harold dead, his army collapsed. By nightfall, William had won. England belonged to the Normans. William was crowned King of England on Christmas Day, 1066, but his conquest was just beginning. He faced years of resistance, leading to the brutal harrying of the north, where entire villages were burned to the ground. To maintain control, he built massive stone castles, introduced the feudal system, and commissioned the Domesday Book to record every landowner in England. Even today, the Norman Conquest still shapes England. Many common words in English, like government and justice, come from Norman French, and the British monarchy can trace its lineage back to William. The Battle of Hastings wasn't just about one throne, it was the beginning of a new era. What do you think? Was William a great leader or just a lucky invader? Let us know in the comments. Like, share, and subscribe for more epic history lessons.